FanDuel is the proud sponsor of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show today, and there's no better place to get it on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA and the NFL. You can bet on anything you want on FanDuel, from college football to professional to hockey, basketball, you name it, FanDuel's got it. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when their first $5 bet wins. So head over to FanDuel.com/UCSS to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Somewhere there's got to be a statistic of what play-by-play man has the best winning percentage calling games. Because Paul Keels has got to be up near the top, right?
That's a great point.
Paul, do you have that statistic anywhere?
No, I do not. But thank you for thinking that.
I mean, you got to be near the top. Our old buddy Jim Donovan, of course, who sadly passed away. We always felt so bad because all he did was call losses all the time. But you're the complete opposite. All you do is call wins. That's got to be a lot of fun.
It does make it a lot of fun. But yeah, I take no credit and I take no blame. How's that?
That's fair. That's fair.
Paul, we go into this Michigan game and, Ohio State has been one of the most dominant teams. They've been so dominant that I said I'm counting my Ohio Bobcats as a victory. And I don't do more victories. I said for 3 quarters, the Ohio Bobcats hung in there. That is a win in my book. When you look at what they're doing now against other teams and doing it without Cardinal Tate, sometimes they don't even have to have Jeremiah Smith. Is this team more talented than the team that won the championship last year?
Whoa.
Well, I don't know if you can say that, but what this team has done has been very business-like operation. They've gone out and taken care of the opponents that are in front of them, and you can find the fact that Penn State was not what everybody thought they would be. Texas is a much better team now than they were here week 1. The Illinois game was not the challenge that maybe a lot of us thought it would be. So it's hard to say that. I think what this team has done is adapted to the talent around them. It was a different makeup last year when you had Will Howard at quarterback. You had 2 experienced running backs. You had 4 very experienced defensive linemen. What they've done this year is been able to mold everybody together, especially with a young running back group for the most part. 4 new starters on the defensive line who played a lot as backups in the previous year. So they've been able to go about it differently than they did last year.
Paul, how has this Michigan rivalry changed Ryan over the years? And I don't know how much time you've been able to spend with him this week. Have you noticed anything different about him this week as opposed to years past of Michigan week?
What he's done this week, and I get a chance to be around him for some of the interviews we do, and we did our coaching show Wednesday with him. He's been very much the same, and there was kind of a concerted effort to keep this week the same as the rest of the weeks during the course of the season. In past years, not only just Ryan, but other coaches have changed things Michigan week with some of the different elements that are involved in this. He's gone out of his way for the most part to keep it the same. He's been very routine. He's been very consistent. He hasn't, at least from my standpoint, I haven't noticed him seeming tense or uptight. He's just been the same person that he's always been in the stuff that we do with it.
Paul, of course, you've been calling Buckeye games for a long time. 2 of the guys you called games for are regular members of our show who are not here today, Dustin Fox and Tyvis Powell, who, of course, are both national champions in their time at Ohio State. How would Dustin Fox and Tyvis Powell fit in on this current Buckeyes team, do you think?
On theme music, you said?
No, how would they fit in? Would they be starters? Would they be backups? I don't know. Would they fit in on the current team well?
Well, that's a tough question because you're talking about guys that played a lot of football during their time and made big plays in this rivalry game. I will always remember Tyvis Powell intercepting a 2-point conversion play that could have decided the game. But that's hard to say because when you look at the positions they played, safety, you've got Caleb Jones, who's the only 2-time All-American that's active right now in college football. You've got a guy like Jalen McClain, who has really come on in the last half of the season and played very, very well. And then throw in Lorenzo Styles as a nickelback, a guy that had been a wide receiver at Notre Dame, comes to Columbus and changes positions and has played at a very high level, not to mention the 100-yard kickoff return he had for a touchdown a couple of weeks ago. But it's safe to say that Tyvis and Dustin would have had some sort of a major effect on this football team.
Paul, for so many years, if Ohio State loses this game, they have no chance of winning a national championship. That all has obviously changed. Do you think the playoff has changed rivalries like this one? Because for all that's at stake, there's nothing at stake. They're still going to the playoffs. So how has that playoff, do you think, changed the rivalry, if at all?
I don't think it's changed it as much as it probably has others, but here's what's at stake. Winning a Big Ten championship, going to the Big Ten championship game. Ohio State's not gone to Indy since the pandemic year of 2020. These players and the players on last year's team have not received a pair of gold pants, the symbol for beating Michigan. So it's important to them to say they're Big Ten champions. Certainly winning the national championship last year offsets some of the pain of losing the Michigan game. But, this losing streak is hanging over Ohio State like the 8-game losing streak that Michigan had to the Buckeyes hung over them until they snapped it. So, but the playoff has changed it because Ohio State showed there is a path to winning a national championship if you don't win your conference championship.
It does matter in terms of seeding, at least, too.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
But for years, you lose this game, you're done.
Then it's over, sure, no doubt.
I'm going to ask you a difficult question here, Paul, and I know you're going to have a tough time with this, but if I ask you, who is the Mount Rushmore of wide receivers at Ohio State?
Oh, my God.
What do you got?
Well, that is a tough one.
This tough. This is crazy. It's a wild question.
It is. I think you have to put David Boston in there.
Okay.
Certainly the late Terry Glenn. I think that you've got to also, it's easy to say that Jeremiah Smith should be there right now. Who else? God, there's so many of them. What Ted Ginn did was remarkable. Santonio Holmes, the same thing. But the picture of them, boy, that's tough.
It's an impossible question. I mean, that is really an impossible question.
I mean, we just Garrett Wilson, Olave, Jackson Smith, and Jigma.
There you go.
I mean, y'all got
Barry McLaurin. The list goes on and on. Go ahead, please.
Paul, what's this game going to come down to on Saturday for Ohio State?
I think it's going to come down to stopping Michigan's running attack, because that, as well as Bryce Underwood has grown into the quarterback position, assuming Jordan Marshall plays for Michigan, with the way he's run the football, and Cusdahl last week filling in for him ran the ball very, very well. Being able to maintain some control on Michigan's rushing game, and for Ohio State to be able to do whatever it takes, whether it's running the football, whether it's throwing the football, to be able to operate efficiently on offense. And also something that Ohio State's done a very good job of is limiting turnover problems. I mean, they had one fumble last week going into the end zone, but more than made up for it with how they finished the game. But defensively, if they can continue to play at the incredibly high level this defense has played, if they can somewhat contain Michigan's running game and do the things that can get Bryce Underwood confused or force him into bad decisions, I think that's where this game can end up being decided.
Paul, was last year's result against Michigan the biggest surprise ever in this rivalry, at least when you've been calling the game? Or was there one bigger that was even a bigger shocker?
You know what? I'd have to say it probably was. You think back to Trestle's first year when they went up to Ann Arbor and won, when Jonathan Wells had a big first half. That was one of them, no question, because it kept Michigan from being able to win a Big Ten championship. But last year was, just because of how talented that team was. Michigan was not nearly as strong as they'd been the year before when they won the national championship. The fact that the game was in Columbus, and add to the fact the ugliness that went on the field after the game.
Yeah.
I mean, that was also a big part of what made that just an awful, awful afternoon.
Really, really quick, you just said that. I remember a game I used to be, before I went to school, I was a big Ohio State fan, and one game that comes to mind is the Tim Biakabutuka 300-yard game. I was befuddled. Some of those John Cooper losses to Michigan, that would hurt my soul because I couldn't pronounce his name, and they lost the game.
Well, and I think you have to go back to Bo Schembechler's first year in 1969, the major upset that Michigan had, and the fact that Bo was a pupil, of Woody Hayes.
Yeah.
You have to throw that one in there as well. But last year, just because of how well everything was going for Ohio State, that was probably, at least in my 28 years now, that was probably the biggest surprise.
Is Julian Sain the biggest surprise in college football? And what has he done to impress you the most?
I don't know if he's the biggest surprise, but he certainly has to be one of them. And from game one, how comfortable he looked out there.
Yeah.
You know, for a guy that played in only 4 games as a number 3 quarterback last year, to go out there and play as comfortably as he's played. You know, we heard all about, you know, the quick release and the accuracy, and those have proven to be key elements to what he's done. But, you know, for a guy that, you know, starting for the first time at a program like Ohio State with the expectations they have, just how comfortable he looks to be out there has maybe been the most notable, at least from where I sit.
Paul, is Joe Burrow going to run the table and get the Bengals to 9 wins?
As a lifelong Bengals fan, I'd love to see that, but I'm not betting anything on it.
I don't blame you. Although the defense actually looked like an NFL defense last night, you know?
Yeah, you know, when everybody was talking about how Joe was going to play last night, my question was, can he play defense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd probably be the 4th best defensive player on the team.
They looked much better last night, and really in the last couple of weeks they've looked a little bit better. But you know, they've just like last year, they've dug themselves a hole.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Paul, what is your? Are you confident? I know you were confident last year, but how confident are you that the Buckeyes are going to get it done and end the losing streak this year?
I'm fairly confident. I feel very optimistic about it. I think that these players, just like we talked about before, winning a Big Ten championship, having a chance to play for a Big Ten championship, getting a pair of gold pants. You know, my partner Jim Lachey is the guy that's in charge of passing out the gold pants to players when they beat Michigan, and he's anxious to do that. So I feel confident, but I also qualify that, like a lot of people say, I felt confident last year too, and it doesn't matter what I think.
Yeah.
Paul, we appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Glad to do it, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Paul Keels. Great
Great Paul
play-by-play
Keels.
man.
What a
He's a
voice,
legend.
by the way.
He's all